The entire concept of faith is rooted in the idea that we're born with a tiny spark of the divine in us, and we seek out a connection to a greater whole. In Christianity, it's described as being made in the image of God. In Judaism, that gift of life, is so sacred that preserving it can override almost any other commandment. In Buddhism, the idea that we are separate from that whole in the first place is treated as illusion. We're all grappling with this idea that the great paradox of being human is that we are at the same time immeasurably holy and very, very small. Even outside of faith, science teaches us that we're made of the same elements as the stars and powered by an energy that can be neither created nor destroyed. But once you start grappling with that paradox, the logical question that comes up is, how does that actually apply to my life? And there are a couple of different points you have to swallow when doing that. First, we have to acknowledge that despite anything we might have been through in our lives, or any mistakes we might have made, that little divine spark is still there. It is an inherent part of us that nothing can take away from us. There is no trauma that is so painful or so ugly that it robs us of the right to our own worth and dignity. We are holy because we exist. But then we get into the even harder part of that concept, which is that if we are intrinsically and inherently sacred, then everyone else is too. Every other person has that same vital spark that makes them worthy and makes them just as valued as we are. And we have to move through the world in a way that honors that. And I don't mean just bare minimum stuff, like tipping your server or getting people's pronouns right, because anybody and everybody can and should do that. I'm talking about the bigger picture. We have to see the systemic oppression that exists in our world, that is baked into society, wherever it crops up, as the vile and obscene thing that it is. Racism, classism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, they all create power structures around the idea that the groups holding the power are somehow more valuable than the people without it. And that core lie is an offense against that divinity that's in all of us. One of my favorite quotes is from the book Carpe Jugulum by Terry Pratchett. It's one of the Discworld novels. And the priest is trying to give Granny Weatherwax this waffling answer on the nature of sin. And she's not having it. She says, "Sin, young man, is when you treat people like things, including yourself. That's what sin is." And she's right. As we wrap our heads around how sacred and how connected all of humanity is, we begin to understand that systems of oppression that harm our neighbors have to be as offensive to us as the ones that impact ourselves, because we aren't that separate. We're all part of this impossibly beautiful whole. Understanding that and viewing human life that way, we're left with a responsibility to rip out those systems of prejudice and power wherever we find them, especially the ones we benefit from, and especially as they exist within ourselves. That is the core of the work, to hold the lives of everyone around us as sacred as our own, and to defend their dignity with the same vigor. If you're not doing that, everything else is just for show.